It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is What Made the Cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And this portion of the show brought to you by the good folks at the Doug Smith family of dealerships in American Fork, Spanish Fork, and now Linden, where you can find the new Kia. We're going to be at the Mitsubishi on Friday. Joining us right now, as I said, Pete Fiutak, College Football News. Pete, what's going on, man?
Two things. I could be really, really, really wrong here, and I'm embarrassed if I do, because this is my era.
Boy.
Wasn't Sonic Youth from Buffalo?
Let me see here.
I think they were. I could be wrong, so forgive me. I don't know why I'm thinking this, but I'm wrong. And the second thing, I don't know if you guys do Apple Music, but what's really kind of awesome now is all those old grunge bands, they have all these like extended deluxe albums of live stuff where it goes like for like 3 hours of, one of these classic albums. And the other part is if you dive even deeper and you listen to these bands that I really didn't know existed at the time, you realize that every Nirvana song is a total ripoff. I love them. It's my favorite band ever. But everything, he's like, oh my God, that Cobain just ripped that whole song off. Like, you can just totally tell how there's so many different lawsuits just waiting to happen, just basically with every single Nirvana song.
They're from New York, actually. They are from New York. New York. So, but my thing was I guess I saw them first in Seattle.
That makes sense, yeah.
Probably at the same places that I saw.
And then a lot of those bands started coming to Seattle to try to get recognized.
They did, and and there's a couple guys when they would swap out band members, they'd be from there too. So Pete nailed it.
Top line resume. That's top line resume stuff. That's my claim to fame is when I was in college. I had like a final, and I couldn't go, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers were playing in Madison. I'm like, gosh, I really want to go see them. I'm like, who's opening for them? I like these bands, Pearl Jam and Nirvana. Never heard of them. I'm going to go study. Like, little did I know that I actually think my claim to fame is I have a friend who swears that in Madison that we played foosball with Chris Novoselic and maybe one of the other, because they recorded part of Nevermind in Madison.
Oh, yeah,
right.
That's interesting.
That.
Well, you know what? Just tell people, and then that will that'll be so.
I think we all know somebody who looks like Chris Novoselic.
I swear you played foosball with him. That's like the best.
I've seen that guy around.
Well, the good news is that look, I've been to Camp Randall Stadium, and I'm trying to think too. Like the Greek Row part of it's just like right next to the stadium, right? I remember.
But the further part's more the other end of the campus, the complete other side of it. But yes, there is a little bit of it there.
There's a little bit of like some Greek houses there that we were. They shared their brats openly with us. And it was a heck of a time. So, and you could definitely assume that somebody looked like anybody if you're one of those things before a game.
Exactly. That's why I refuse to believe the story is true. But in my friendship lore with my friends, they swear it, so it's been part of it. Yeah. So
keep it. Don't look up pictures of Sonic Youth right now either. They're all 71. I feel like years old. Any of your favorite bands are just all old now.
That's depressing.
Crazy.
Try this one. I don't know why I looked up. I'm going on a complete tangent here and everything. Kramer is like 77 or something.
Oh, I can't.
Like, you want to feel really old. I mean, it was insane. I don't know why. I looked that up the other day.
Michael Richards?
Michael Richards?
No, so somebody just posted on social media. Somehow it got on my feed. He was on The Dating Game in 1968.
Oh, yeah. Well, but Jerry Seinfeld is, I think, 70 also. And
right, he is.
So it's like Michael Richards always looked a lot older than Seinfeld. But Seinfeld was supposed to be like 30 years old in that show, and now he's like 70. I mean, my goodness.
We're all getting old.
He's making out with the reporter, he's making out with the reporter from NYU.
Look at that.
The student reporter in that famous episode. Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff happening. It was the 90s.
Oh, for
crazy.
sure. It was the 90s.
The
I love how we
90s were
say
a weird time.
The 90s were crazy, yeah. All right, Pete, let's jump in here. What of the college football playoff rankings offended you last night when they got rolled out?
The show itself. Look, again, I've mentioned this before. They're smart. It's a smart group there. It's a smart. Reese Davis is awesome, man. I don't blame him because it's the over thing. But the idea that they keep putting out this is the bracket. Like, it's not the bracket. It can't be the bracket because some of these teams are going to lose. And so it's for some reason that's a problem. They need a better spokesperson. I mean, I'm not joking. I should actually be the spokesperson, but they can't sell it, and it's inexcusable to come out there and say, "Well, we're not going to punish. We're out of data points at this point. No one can move." Well, that's not how the college football playoff rankings work. That's for the AP and coaches poll. These rankings start from scratch. And the problem with the idea of, we're not going to punish teams that, play in a conference championship. Well, yeah, you do, because that's not supposed to matter. It's supposed to be, who do you think are the 12 best teams regardless of everything else? And if, say, Penn State just gets smoked, is it still going to be ranked ahead of Notre Dame because it's right now they're going to get punished for this? How do you do this? So it's just a little too loose considering all the drama and controversy of last year.
Yeah, Pete, a lot to break down here, but you bring up a good point, and I want to dig into that with you, is what happens if these teams playing in conference championship games lose and they SMU could just fall right out of the playoff? What incentive are these teams going to have in the future to play in these championship games if it can cost them a spot in the playoff?
Well, exactly. And let me try this one. More to the direct point, the real whiff that's going to come flying out pretty fast here. The inexcusable part, this playoff system is going to be great. We're going to love it. It's going to be so much fun, especially considering the bowl season is going to be awful because everyone's transferring, everyone's opting out. So the playoff is going to be great. But what they whiffed on, and I've asked, and no one has a real answer as to why. There's no real technical answer why there's no reseeding. So try this. The 6th seed is probably maybe going to be Ohio State, or 7th seed may be Ohio State. And let's say the 10th or 11th seed is maybe in Alabama, or let's say in Indiana or a Tennessee or something like that. So let's say somehow Ohio State and Alabama play. Their next round matchup is going to be a Boise State or a Big 12 champion or an SMU. Meanwhile, the 1 and 2 seed is going to get the 1 and 2 seed is going to get Tennessee or someone power,
right,
or Penn State or some superpower in the second round. So there is, outside of having the break, there is no real advantage. The teams that don't play in these conference championships really do catch a break. They get that and the 3 weeks off. So I go on shows in Ohio and they scream at me because they're all sad and weird and self-pity and all that stuff.
You guys in Ohio, man, you're sad and weird, man.
Hey, if you had to live in Ohio, you'd be sad too.
And weird.
Well, I don't care if we win the national championship. We lost to Michigan. That
boy.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. I can't. But anyway, so they're still in it, but they actually caught a break by losing to Michigan in a weird way because now they get a lot of time off. They need help on that offensive line to heal up, and they get to kind of recalibrate stuff. They're not, and it's going to happen this weekend. There are going to be injuries. It might not be catastrophic, quarterback injuries, but you're going to lose parts this weekend by playing that one extra game that these other teams aren't going to have to play.
Pete, one of the things that we were looking at too, because in that same vein, it's Indiana. It was what a great game to lose against Ohio State because after Ohio State lost this week, then it was like, hey, they're not playing the Big Ten championship game, and Indiana's going, oh shoot, man, we would have loved to have been in that conference championship game. Shoot, man, we'll see you guys in the college football playoff. On a year that, honestly, if you look at Indiana, the way they played against Ohio State, you think, all right, well, maybe you lose against anybody who's in the top 25. We don't know. But, there's so many of those things that go on. That's why I don't know. At the same time, you can't – leaving out an 11-1 team in any of the Power 4 conferences feels wrong.
Well, that's the thing. You've never – and let's assume – it's only assuming if SMU loses. Because if SMU wins, they're in. They're probably the 3 seed. But if they lose in 11-2, it would be the first time in the college football playoff era, had there been 12-team rankings over the last 10 years, that a Power 4 or then Power 5 11-win team would have been left out. So I don't think they're totally out. I mean, I still think they're going to just go with Alabama just because. But here's the other thing to remember, and there's going to be a lot of screaming. It's kind of like my NCAA basketball tournament theory. If you're on a bubble, you probably don't belong in the tournament. You have no – all these teams are crying, oh, well, we have this RPI. Well, you're ranked you're on a bubble here. You finished 7th in your conference. Why should you be in this tournament? Right. A little bit like this. If you're 13th-ish or 12th-ish, you're only there because of a reason. That means you didn't win your conference championship. So if you didn't win your conference championship, why should you have any claim or beef to have a chance at the national title? So you had your shot, and you blew it.
Let's dig into Alabama because I think that's the controversial one that everyone's been talking about since last night. at 11, it looks like they're going to get in. And at 9-3, 2 weeks ago they lost to Oklahoma and they scored 3 points in Norman. Like, they are obviously very flawed. But do you believe out of that group of teams, they're the team that should get in over Miami, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and on and on and on?
You know what's funny is just before I got on here, my little sewing circle of bowl people and the other media types that we text about and everything, we're like, yeah, watch, everyone's going to scream and cry and scream fix, and it's all rigged, and Bama gets in at the 11, and ESPN.
They make a run.
Bama go, exactly, and watch Bama go full Bama and win the whole thing. I mean, remember, last year's team was kind of mediocre. J.J. McCarthy didn't hit that one pass in the Rose Bowl, and Bama's probably your national champion. So, like, there's not going to be a lightweight. But, like, I'm with you. Most years I'd be screaming that, of course, Bama belongs in this. But the loss you get one of these losses. Like, Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois, a total bad day, fluke outlier. Obviously, it was a one-off. It was not an indictment of the team. They just had a really bizarre game plan and played poorly. Ohio State even, that was a choke against Michigan. They're better than Michigan. We know that they're good. But you get one of those. You don't get two. And I know Vandy's better, but you don't lose to Vanderbilt if you're Alabama and have that, like you said. Not only was it that was a total dominant game by a 6-6 Oklahoma team that just wasn't that great, especially late in the year. You don't get both of those. The problem is who's the 12th then? Like, who did Miami beat? Miami lost 2 of its last 3 games. They don't have a great win outside of, Florida to start the season? I mean, South Carolina, they beat Clemson. They're red hot, and they lost to Alabama. So Ole Miss, very good, but they lost at home to a 4-8 Kentucky team. So if you're the playoff committee, here's how you rationalize this. Let's say Clemson beats SMU. Clemson's in. They're probably the 12th seed. Well, then, all right, so what? Are we going to play an SMU or Alabama? Well, Clemson just beat SMU. Alabama beat Georgia, who annihilated Clemson. Bama beat South Carolina, who just beat Clemson. Bama has the 2 wins over 2 teams that beat Clemson. Clemson just beat SMU. Alabama in. That's how you try to figure that one out.
Pete Fiutak joins us here on JJ and Alex as we get you ready for disappointment into the college football playoff last rankings of next week.
It'll be a blast. It'll be so much fun.
I know.
It's going to take over, and it again compared to the rest of this bowl season, it's going to be a riot.
We're in Big 12 country, and the highest ranked Big 12 team is 15th. Pete, is the Big 12 getting screwed in this?
No, they're not that good. I mean, outside of BYU beating SMU, I'm sure I'm missing something obvious. Was there another giant win for the conference this year? Colorado lost 28-10 to Nebraska. It's a great conference from top to bottom, but there wasn't a great team. But let's see. I keep saying I want to see Arizona State in this thing.
Let me stop you, Pete, real quick. I'll say Arizona State beat BYU. They beat Kansas State in Manhattan.
Yeah, but
and if they win the Big 12 championship game, they have a win over 16th-ranked Iowa State. And they're red hot right now.
Yeah, but those are all Big 12 on Big 12 things. What else you got? I'm with you. Beating Mississippi State's not that great. It's this year. I get it. Get in there. And that's the positive about this, is you do have the mechanism this year where, okay, blah, 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 Big 12 is overrated. Well, then, okay, go win the conference and go in and win the thing. You get your shot. So as opposed to, speculation, we get to actually see what the Big 12 champion can do, and then we can go back and say, hey, wait a minute here, maybe, this conference was better than we thought. So, so to the whole point, let's go with BYU for a second here, and data points in the Ward Manual last night saying, well, there's no way any of these teams move up. Well, what if SMU smokes Clemson 55-3 or something like that? What if SMU just goes off and you're like, okay, well, they are now 12-1. What's that one? BYU won at SMU. Okay, it's a different SMU now, different quarterback, and they almost lost to Nevada to start the season and all that. But still, if you're BYU at that point, you're saying, okay, yeah, we lost to Kansas, we had our shot, and we blew it late in the year. But still, how about just a little more love than they're getting from the committee for giving SMU that one loss? So there's still things that can happen, which can at least kind of define the final rankings a little bit better.
Pete, does all this does mommy and daddy fighting at the college football playoff table mean that we're not going to get a 14-team discussion, or does that actually make it more of a possibility that college football playoff expansion
the
is...
SEC right now says we could get Ole Miss and South Carolina in,
let's
too.
get them all in.
Let's do 16.
But that's what I'm saying. But see, other commissioners would go, we can't do this. We can't have this drama extended to everybody else. But at the same time, I love the drama, Pete. Are you kidding me? I love the bickering. I love the back and forth. So does this make it more of a possibility that expansion is more likely or less likely after the first-year chaos that I assume is just going to happen every year anyway to some degree?
I mean, your mark and the other, in the ACC and the others, they've got a noodle they're bringing to the gunfight. I mean, it's like, it can't be all Big Ten and SEC shaking fists. And it's like, yeah, it can. Because that's where most of the really awesome teams are with all the money, and that's how it's going to kind of work going forward. It's, I don't like seeing it. I do think there should be caps or limits on it. I mean, I don't think you should be able to have like 7 teams in like a 14 or 16 team playoff. I mean, there's just no point at that. I would actually say you should expand it and include an extra. You make it like 6 automatic qualifiers. So, maybe an Army or Tulane, there's your first round free space. But at least, provide a mechanism for teams that can win their way into this and not be based on the whims of the judges and stuff. But again, like all the posturing, they're politicking. So that's what you have to do. And I get where Yormark's saying Big 12 because that's what you have to do for your conference, and he's got a point there. But I don't want to hear it from Lane Kiffin. I love him, but you lost to Kentucky at home for an 8 team. You can't. I get it to a certain extent, but again, if you're a 3-loss team, you really don't have a historical or legitimate beef to be in a playoff.
College football news is where you can find Pete Fiutak and his byline, and I'm telling you, if you want to get yourself frothing at the mouth, you can go read some of Pete's stuff, and he'll make you just as mad as you hear him on the radio talking about this. But, yes, the breakdowns are full on. You can go check it out right now. There is a breakdown of why Alabama, just as a brand, is right there at the door, and you can't avoid it. Alabama is inevitable in this year's college football playoff. So, Pete, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it as always. I hope not too, but I feel like it's going to happen.
Anytime, guys. You have a great one.
There you go.
Thanks,
Pete Fiutak. There you go. He's too reasonable. I need more grumpiness.
He didn't defend Alabama like I thought he would.
I don't think he's necessarily
because it's indefensible.
I know.